Hello boys and girls. Today Auntie Katie's going to read Mr. Cheerful by Roger Hargreaves. Are you sitting comfy? And are you ready? Mr. Cheerful by Roger Hargreaves. Mr. Cheerful always woke up in a cheerful mood, with a bright sunny smile on his face. In fact, Mr. Cheerful was one of the most cheerful people you are ever likely to meet. He did, however, have one secret that made him sad, but nobody knew about it. Not yet, anyway. All I can tell you is that he liked to keep it under his hat. There's Mr. Cheerful in bed. He has his hat on in bed. Mr. Cheerful was never without a smile. From breakfast time in the morning, there he is having breakfast, to his bath time at night, Mr. Cheerful beamed from ear to ear. He was even happy when it rained. Look at him being so cheerful in the rain. And on a sunny day, his smile was even brighter and sunnier than the sun. Everybody around him couldn't help but feel cheerful. There's Mr. Cheerful in the sun, smiling away. Even the flowers smiled when Mr. Cheerful walked past. There's the flowers smiling. Must be such a lovely place to be with Mr. Cheerful. When Mr. Funny met him, he felt so happy that he pulled an even funnier face than usual, making Mr. Cheerful laugh out loud. Look at Mr. Funny's funny face. Then one day, while out for a walk, Mr. Cheerful bumped into little Miss Splendid. Mr. Cheerful smiled his usual cheerful smile. Little Miss Splendid began to smile, but then she stopped and looked sternly at Mr. Cheerful. Oh, look at her stern face. I wonder what her problem is. "How rude!" she exclaimed. "Young man, don't you know that you should raise your hat when you meet a lady?" Gosh. For the first time in his life, Mr. Cheerful lost his smile. And then he blushed, bright red, but he still did not raise his hat. There's Mr. Cheerful going bright red. He doesn't want to raise his hat. I wonder why. "You should be ashamed of yourself," cried little Miss Splendid. "Why won't you raise your hat?" "I'm too embarrassed," replied Mr. Cheerful, blushing an even brighter red. "Without my hat on, I'm not very good looking, and that makes me sad." "Really?" asked little Miss Splendid. "Let me see." Mr. Cheerful lifted his hat. And now I'll tell you what his secret was. Are you ready? Poor Mr. Cheerful. Mr. Cheerful had the grand total of only 3 hairs on his head. 1, 2, 3. "Is that all you're worried about?" asked little Miss Splendid. "Why, it's your bright sunny smile that everyone loves, not how many hairs you have on your head." And little Miss Splendid smiled. Then Mr. Cheerful smiled. And ever since that day, he hasn't stopped smiling. And he's always quick to raise his hat to everyone he meets. There's little Mr. Cheerful with his 3 hairs on his head, raising his hat, smiling away. It's a smile that everyone loves. And everyone he meets goes away feeling happy and cheerful, which leaves only one thing left to say. Here's all our Mr. Men characters, some of the favourites in there. Hats off to Mr. Cheerful. Mr. Cheerful by Roger Hargreaves.